Good morning. My name is Gregory McCarthy with the Washington Nationals, and it's my great pleasure, thank you, to welcome you to Nationals Park, and a special welcome to our elected leadership, Mayor Bowser and Councilmember McDuffie. Now, speaking of elected leaders, it was about 19 years ago that our city was wrestling with the question of whether to seek a Major League Baseball team and build a stadium to house them. There were some doubters. Some said that Washington wasn't a baseball town, that it couldn't support a fan base. Is that right? No. Some said that sports was not a legitimate economic development tool, that a ballpark couldn't spawn a dynamic neighborhood full of residents and establishments and jobs. But if you look over my shoulder at the blocks around the ballpark, you'll see a vibrant neighborhood now exists that's really a prototype for Comeback DC. The Capitol Riverfront, with Nationals Park and Audi Field as its anchors, is a vibrant mixed-use neighborhood that actually grew population during COVID. This is a place where people came to telework from. Now, after 16 years, our ballpark is approaching middle age, but it still attracts almost 3 million people a year. So the sports community is really eager to hear today what the mayor and Councilmember McDuffie have to say. We represent men's and women's basketball and soccer teams, hockey, tennis, and of course baseball. Some of us play in the winter, some of us play in the summer, some play on asphalt, some on wood, some on ice, and of course grass. But we have one thing in common that binds us all together. We have a supportive #1 fan to cheer us on, who's always got our back, our mayor, the mayor of the District of Champions, Muriel Bowser.
Thank you. Well, hello, sports fans. And hello, Washington, D.C. And I want to thank you, Gregory, and I want to thank the Washington Nationals for hosting us here today. We are joined by members of district government, the sports community, our young people who are playing and learning sport, members of the council, all here at Nats Park to talk about exciting sports news and, of course, look to the future. I want to acknowledge our council member who is the chair of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, Councilmember Kenya McDuffie. Please give him a big round of applause. Also, I noted the Ward 3 council member has joined us, Matt Fruman. Please give Matt a big round of applause. I understand, too, that we've been joined by Dr. Coombe, who is Councilmember Vincent Gray's wife. So give her a big round of applause. Thank you for being here, Don. We also have members of our hospitality, sports, and entertainment infrastructure for the district here. I want to especially acknowledge Angie Gates, who is the president and CEO of Events DC, as well as LaToya Foster, who is the director of the Office of Cable, Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. I, too, want to acknowledge our CFO, who is responsible for all manners of finance for the District of Columbia, Metro, ballparks, you name it, Glenn Lee. Please welcome Glenn Lee. And our sports teams and franchise representatives who are here. I want to thank you, and I also want to thank everyone who couldn't be here, who would have been here if they had, maybe more notice. So I want to acknowledge the Washington Nationals, give them a big round of applause. Monumental Sports, who is represented. Where's Monumental? That's the Wizards, the Capitals, and the Mystics. As well as all of our tennis representatives. Where's our tennis, our little guys and gals? And we have a big tennis tournament is starting. I'm going to be at the draw this Friday at the Carter Barron. The City Open that now has a new name. Mubadala City Open, and we're looking forward to joining that as well. We have some D.C. government alum, and Brian Kenner, and also Jack Evans, the former council member for Ward 2. I'm pretty sure I forgot to acknowledge somebody, but know that you were invited here, but because you're very important to our work ahead. So there was some big sports news that many people read about in the Washington Post this morning, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But we've had some big sports news over the last several years. Last week, for example, Audi Field hosted an incredible MLS All-Star game. So let's recognize and thank DC United and team for all that they have done for soccer in DC. I mentioned that we will kick off the City Open at the Carter Barron up in Ward 4. Last week, DC welcomed a new ownership group for the Washington Commanders, so we want to welcome Josh Harris and team. We know that we have 4 of our Washington Spirit players, our women's soccer team, who are playing for the United States in the World Cup. So there is a lot for us to be excited about. And today there was more big news, as I mentioned. Chairman James Comer and Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton introduced a bipartisan piece of legislation that will allow us to redevelop RFK. As you know, from the moment I became mayor, I made it a point for the district to get control of RFK and control our destiny. So the legislation that was introduced today will allow for a 99-year lease of RFK, which is very important to us. It will allow for a mixed use of the land, which is very important to us. So that's sport, recreation, housing, restaurants. But when I say that, I mean jobs and opportunity for DC residents. So Gregory already talked about what this stadium has meant to this part of the city. And if you don't believe him, go look at the Capitol Riverfront's assessment about what transformation has occurred here and what it has meant for jobs, housing, opportunity for the district. And you know, that's government talk for revenues and for growth and for attracting more. We're also not far from the Audi Field. We are across the river from the ESA, our sports and entertainment facility, also the practice facility for the Washington Wizards and the home court for the Washington Mystics. And we are a train ride away from the Capital One Arena, which anchors our downtown. So I take tremendous pride in all the opportunities that we have created in the district over the last decade. It started with Mayor Williams' relentless commitment to bring the Washington Nationals back to D.C. And one of the first deals that I made as mayor-elect, then mayor, former chairman of the Economic Development Committee, was to secure our soccer stadium at Buzzard Point. And then we built the home, again, of the Washington Mystics in Ward 8. And what we've seen around stadiums and arenas in our city has been nothing short of transformational. We saw it when Abe Poland decided to move the then Bullets, now Wizards, from the suburbs to the downtown where they belong, the downtown Chinatown, what it meant to our city. And not only, and what we see, I always like to tell good business stories of DC, because we know how great a company Monumental is, and we like to think that DC has been a part of that. And not only has it been a tremendous opportunity over the last several weeks for us to celebrate and expand sports in DC, it's allowed us to create jobs. Almost every time I come to any of our arenas, I meet a DC resident who is working, and they're happy, and they're proud, and they're growing in their careers. And when you come to a baseball game or a Wizards game, I hope, or at the ESA and Sports Arena where people are really proud. They're proud. I hope that you take a moment to thank our workers who are there and to find out about opportunities yourself, because I think they're all hiring. So please do that. And so we're very, very encouraged about today's news because we just got a call that Chairman Comer has introduced the legislation. And then that is... Sometimes when these things happen, and Jack knows this, people think, oh, that's great. It just happened just like that. But we've been working really hard, and there are a lot of people who have been a part of the sausage making that goes into legislation and building fantastic facilities. I especially want to acknowledge our council members in that process. Councilmember McDuffie, Councilmember Henderson, at-large council member, has also arrived, who likes sausage making. So sometimes we call on her for some sausage making, and we really appreciate that. So we talked about what a 99-year lease means for us. More opportunity, and 190 acres of land, which can accommodate a lot of uses. So there is a lot of work that needs to get done between now and seeing cranes in the sky, but I know Events DC is already focused on the demolition of the stadium that served us so well for so long to get ready for the future. The council has already approved also, for example, $60 million in capital funding that will allow us to build a DPR facility at RFK. Thene, I didn't acknowledge our Director for Parks and Recreation, Thene Freeman, and we are trying to fill a gap that we have in the city for indoor sports for our kids. Believe it or not, we send our kids out to Maryland to do indoor track. That's going to change. They tell me we don't have enough ice for our kids. That may change. We need more tennis facilities and soccer facilities, indoors. That should change. And we can do it here in the district. So what sport means for cities, we don't have to dwell on. We know we've celebrated a World Series with the Washington Nationals. We've celebrated a Stanley Cup with the Capitals. The Mystics became world champions. We've recently, in my tenure, hosted 2 All-Star games. But we've also missed some opportunities, right? And some of those opportunities is because we didn't have the facilities to support them. So the World Cup, it should be in Washington, D.C. The Olympics should be in Washington, D.C. The Super Bowl should be in Washington, D.C. The NBA should have their All-Star game in Washington, D.C. So what we're announcing today, we're not just celebrating. We are kind of having a sports rally. That's true. But we're also want to talk about how we will be organized to make sure that happens. So I'm here to announce that we are creating a sports team at DMPED. That's my economic development office. And I want to acknowledge our Deputy Mayor, Keith Anderson, who is here. I've tasked Keith with making sure that we're very focused on how to get this work done. He's appointed Jonathan Kane, who's here. Many of you will know Jonathan. And Jonathan will lead our sports efforts at DMPED. Jonathan is a longtime government executive who's worked at DGS and now DMPED and will be our point of contact in the DMPED office. I want to acknowledge Sarosh Opadwala, who is the Director of Real Estate at DMPED, who will also be part of our sports efforts. Working tightly with Events DC, who is our sports lead across the city on our sporting venues. And I want to thank Angie Gates for her partnership in that work. The second thing I want to announce is that one of the first tasks of this sports team is commissioning a study. hiring a consultant to work with us to help analyze all of our sports needs and how we will get those investments done. And we will put out an RFP in the coming week. We are finalizing the details of what we need that consultant to help us with, but it's something that we want to work on quickly. So if you're interested in working with the city, look out at the DMPED website for details about how to work with us, and we will select an outstanding, creative, innovative partner to help us work on the details about how we get there. So I said a lot, but there was a lot to say, and it's a very good day for DC in sport. But before I turn it over to Councilmember McDuffie, I just want to remind everybody, because anytime I talk about professional sports, I talk about our little ones, and I remind people, and I tell Gregory, I had to reacquaint myself with baseball, because I grew up in a Washington, D.C., where we didn't have a professional baseball team. And when I go out across the communities and I see kids, some of our kids had to be reacquainted with baseball too, because they didn't grow up with professional baseball. So the role of sport in young people and letting them see teamwork and discipline and perseverance is important. And we have a lot of talented young people here. And so the sports teams bring not only some aspiration for some of them to aspire to professional sports, but also resources, whether it's players or fields or clinics or all-star opportunities that we want our kids exposed to too. So yes, we are talking about fun and games, district revenues and opportunities, but we're also talking about the future for our little ones. So with that, I want to turn to Councilmember Kenya McDuffie, who's not on the program by accident, because he, the chairman of this committee, along with his colleagues, have a tremendous role to play in how we build our sports capital. Councilmember McDuffie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don't these kids look great? Let's give the kids a round of applause. And let me begin by saying good morning and welcome. It's great to be here. I'm going to acknowledge every single person that the mayor acknowledged without repeating all the names. But it's great to see some friendly faces. Obviously, our champion sports teams are well represented here today. I see Monica Dixon and Monumental. I see folks representing DC United Leases right here. I see the Washington Spirit represented. So we've got our teams represented here today for this exciting news. And I want to recognize my colleagues who are here today. We've got at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson, Ward 3 Councilmember Matt Fruman. Let's give them a round of applause for all the work that they're doing and their constant support of our sports team here in the District of Champions. I want to acknowledge all the government officials who are present representing the executive agencies. I also want to acknowledge Angie Gates with Advance DC. I see Ty Simpson as well and all the other folks who are a member of the board. And then I wanted to say my final thank you and acknowledgement to a woman who has been really the chief champion of District of Columbia sports, who has really led on these issues to make sure that people understand that we are the sports capital of the world here in the nation's capital. Let's give Mayor Muriel Bowser a round of applause, please. We've got some beautiful kids here, and I want to take this opportunity to really acknowledge and tell folks how proud we are of all our teams across the District of Columbia, our middle school teams, our high school teams, and all the scholar athletes who participate in sports here in the District of Columbia, all our universities as well. This past week in the district, as the mayor mentioned, was yet another great example of the excitement in the District of Columbia's culture of sports. Our city hosted the MLS All-Star Game, and I had the privilege of being here witnessing that, and it was a beautiful day in the nation's capital at Audi Field. More than 100, in case you didn't know, more than 100 youth girls basketball teams played at the U.S. Junior Nationals Tournament hosted at the Washington Convention Center. It was a beautiful day, Angie Gates. And the mayor talked about the facility that we are supporting at the council with $60 million so we can do more youth sports in the District of Columbia so parents like me, who's a girl dad, don't have to travel to Pennsylvania and Virginia and all these other places and spend all that money at the hotels and the restaurants. We can do more of that here. So it was an exciting day for that tournament in the District of Columbia. I got to celebrate the big 3-0 victory by the U.S. women's soccer team in the Women's World Cup at Toro Bar in Columbia Heights. It's a beautiful thing. Which, by the way, Toro Bar is going to be showing every single game around the clock, so make sure you go check them out. We didn't get the outcome we wanted just last night, but it was still an exciting game, and we're going to keep on supporting our women. We're going to pull it out again, I hope. And there was something else that happened last week. What happened? You know I'm joking. I'm joking, Madam Mayor. We had a bright new day with the sale of the Washington Commanders to Josh Harris and his partners, and I think that bears another round of applause. But seriously, though, over the last several years, I think the mayor spoke to this, but I think it bears repeating. We've witnessed some major successes by our professional sports teams. In just the last decade or so, we've celebrated a number of championships. And at the risk of leaving some of them out, I think we need to name some of them. The 6-time world tennis champions, the Washington Capitals, brought home a crown every season, I think, between 2011 and 2015, which is awesome. We've got tennis coming up real soon. Hopefully, y'all are going to support the tennis coming up in the City Open. Our Washington Capitals raised the Stanley Cup in 2018. Thank you, Monumental, and all the folks you all are doing there. The Washington Mystics won the 2019 WNBA championship. I got the privilege of cheering them on. Not to be outdone, a few weeks later, the Washington Nationals won the World Series. And in 2021, the Washington Spirit won the National Women's Soccer League Championship. We are indeed a district of champions. It's something that we need to keep celebrating and repeating in case they don't know, Madam Mayor. There's no better place to lift your trophy than right here in the District of Columbia, and I wanted to be here as a part of this big announcement that the mayor made today, recognizing the need to not only recognize what we're doing here in the District of Columbia, but acknowledge that we have to nurture our local sports economy. We have to keep pouring in and investing in our local sports teams and our local sports economy. There shouldn't be theoretical discussions. There need to be real-life discussions happening right here. And again, to repeat what the mayor said, and I'm looking at Jack Evans when I say this, you all recall, if you don't, you should learn about what the MCI Center did for Gallery Place in the Penn Quarter area. Thank you to A. Poland and all the folks who helped to make that happen. And what Nats Park did for the Capitol Riverfront and Navy Yard area, and what Audi Field is doing for the area around Buzzards Point. We see concrete examples of this. And it's important that we have a mayor and a council that recognize that and understand the value of continuing to pour into that, because in the end of the day, our sports economy is really inextricably linked to our overall economy. And I see a future of positive economic growth in the District of Columbia if we continue to make smart decisions like the ones we're making. So I want to say, again, thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser, to her entire team. I look forward to seeing what Keith Anderson is going to do with his team at DMPED. To make sure we're nurturing this. And I also want to acknowledge our Chief Financial Officer. I know is going to be watching some of this as well, counting those dollars for us, Glenn Lee, and your team. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this day. I think our Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development is coming up next. Let's give Keith Anderson a round of applause.
Thank you, Council Member, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. Isn't today a wonderful day for our city? It's a wonderful day for our city. It's a wonderful day for our sports teams, and more importantly, a wonderful day for our communities. The team and I at DMPED understand the transformational power a stadium like this could have in our community, and what can it do to increase the amount of work that's already going on at Hill East. Has anyone been by Hill East lately? There's a tremendous amount of work going on over there, and we want to double down on that effort to create opportunities for our businesses, but more importantly, for our residents. Now, Mayor Bowser often calls DMPED her big deal team. And we're always ready for a challenge. And with the creation of the sports team, we're sending a clear message to our teams that we're their go-to resource within DC government. And we'll be working closely with our district agency partners and sports partners to coordinate all the mayor's sports activities and, more importantly, strategies. Many of the professional franchises here already know us very well, but we have some new folks in town who may be coming to us as well. And we want to keep pursuing other big world-class sports events like last week's All-Star Game that brings big dividends to the District of Columbia's economy. That's right. The mayor is making a clear and strong commitment to our teams that sports are a priority for our city and to the success of our local economy. There's no doubt in my mind that when our teams win, DC wins. And we're proud to have a strong tradition of winning in the District of Champions. Ultimately, we know how important sports are not only to DC's economy by creating jobs and generating tax revenue, but also to our culture by celebrating traditions that brings our city together. These teams also have a lot to give back to our community, and we're also going to work with them to ensure that impact is felt across our neighborhoods and particularly among our youth, who are the next generation of athletes, coaches, and potentially owners. You hear me? We're the District of Champions. DMPED and the sports teams are excited to lead Mayor Bowser's effort to support the success of our teams both on and off the field. And I particularly want to thank and recognize Jonathan Kane, who is with us today, and Saros Alpandwala from DMPED for taking this effort on. As Mayor Bowser mentioned, as part of their work, the sports team will be commissioning a DC sports study to help answer some of the challenges facing our sports ecosystem. For example, we want to identify effective deal structures for financing DC sports facilities, including comparative financing models from other cities. And we hope with this legislation today that the RFK campus becomes a part of that conversation as well. So, Mayor, with that, we have our marching orders. Thank you, and it's a great day for our city, and great seeing you.
Okay, so with that, I'm not sure if there are going to be any questions. There are. Okay, I'll ask some questions. But I wanted to say, one of the commissioners was here, the MLB commissioner, the MLS commissioner, Major League Soccer commissioner, and he said to me, this is the best all-star game we've ever had. So please give another round to DC United for putting us on the map in a very, very positive way. So with that, we'll take some questions. Tom?
Good morning, Mayor. This ballpark we're in, as Gregory just mentioned, is aging and needs lots of work. Ted Leonsis wants you to help him rebuild the Capital One Arena downtown. You want to build an NFL stadium at RFK or be part of the construction of it. What is the district's financial commitment to all of this? And what do you say to people who are inevitably going to say you're taking money away from social needs?
Well, that's always an argument, but my job as mayor is to make sure that we're always growing. So what we're going to be talking about with sport, which we have already talked about, is how we attract, maintain what we have, and grow what we have. Many of the team owners that I have already mentioned, Ted included, who I talked to earlier this week, and I know he would be here today with us if he could. Even he's grown since he's been there, since he became the owner. and he's grown sports activity. And so that's what we want all of our teams to be thinking about, including like with the evolving esports. And making necessary investments there. So we want all of our team owners and would-be team owners to think about not only coming to the district, staying in the district, and growing what they have in the district. And so we've kind of already gone over the old argument that we shouldn't build Nats Park because we could be building schools. Well, the truth is we have to do both. Just as we found a way to do both with this stadium and Audi Field, we will find the way to do all the things that big cities do in a responsible way.
And if I could follow up, one of the criticisms across the country where new facilities, sports facilities are being built is we don't want to build it. The wealthy NFL, for example, should build its own stadiums. To what extent would you use city money to actually build the stadium, or is that something the team will do and the city will only spend money in land prep?
Well, I've already talked about, and one of the major deals that I have done here is Audi Field, and it is a great example. We get the land, we prepare the land, the team builds the stadium. But I also don't want to get ahead of the study that I've just announced, because that's going to help us think of things that we haven't thought of before, in things that will work for our city. So that's why we're doing this. We're serious about it. I don't like studies that take a long time, so we'll have a reasonable period of time. We've already begun working with Monumental on the investments necessary there. So we're going to keep pushing in a way that is thoughtful, but demands creativity, and we will continue to work with our partners to advance some recommendations. Yes. Let's get a microphone over to you.
The legislation in Capitol Hill. Just talk about that and the chances of bringing a team, an NFL. And would you be willing to pay or spend public money to build a new stadium?
Okay, I already addressed the investment question, but let me tell you what the legislation, why it's so important, and I've literally talked about it for 8 years that I've been mayor. We have 190 acres sitting on the Anacostia River on the Monumental access that has been failing, and in disrepair, in a city that's in need of housing, jobs, and opportunity. So it is a situation that is untenable, and that's why we've worked on it so hard. I just noticed my chief congressional person arrived. I don't know where she is, Beverly Perry, and I want to acknowledge her, and we should all give her like a huge round of applause. Beverly is the embodiment of one of my kind of new credos: can't stop, won't stop, never quit. That woman can't stop, won't stop, and she never quits. And I just can't emphasize enough how getting control of that is just a win for the city. It's a win for the federal government. It's a win for our kids. Because I was with Congresswoman Norton recently at Walter Reed. And Walter Reed, similarly, 100 and some, 166, I think is the number, 166 acres between Rock Creek Park and Georgia Avenue. And it similarly had aging facilities that were falling down. I went to Whole Foods there last week. I see people who are formerly homeless now have their second chance at housing there. I see a square there. DPR is going to build an outdoor swimming facility there. And we just I was reminded, the Congresswoman was reminded, that we looked around and we saw that land that was being underutilized, what it could mean for Washington, D.C. And that's why that legislation moving is important. It's bipartisan, and we hope, though, that it moves expeditiously through the process so that we can get to work. Yes.
Hi, Mary. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the role that your new sports team will play in trying to attract the Washington Commanders, the extent to which they'll be focused on that, and if the question of whether the city would use public funds is still up in the air, what exactly is your pitch to try to attract the Commanders to RFK?
Well, Megan, right now we're really focused on getting control of the land because without control of the land, there aren't going to be the types of there won't be any investment for the city in kind of constructing a recreational facility only. So I want to be clear: getting control of the land and the city's involvement. That's the first thing. And I think just as we do with any economic development opportunity, we are always trying to interest businesses to come to the district, and the sports team won't be any different. I've highlighted a model that we know works. It's probably not the only model, and that's why we are investing in this study to come up with what's best for DC.
Mayor, good morning. Have you had a chance to talk with Mr. Harris or anyone as part of his investment group, and what would your pitch be to him if you have a chance to talk with him and the group?
I have talked to the new group of owners, Josh Harris, Mitch Rails, Mark Ein, and they have another group. They visited with me at City Hall yesterday. I talked to them immediately. Josh called me immediately after the sale was complete last week. And, you know, this is what I say, and I've always said it. There's really only one place for the team in this region. I mean, I know I've been a little coy, but I got to, it's only one choice.
Mayor, did you get any indication that, given the fact that Harris said he attended RFK as a kid, that would be something that he would seriously look at?
Of course, they're going to look at it. Of course. They know he's a homer like we are, and he's been to the stadium. What I learned from Megan's story this morning was that there was spontaneous applause and cries from the fan base for RFK. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. But having said all that, we know what we are working with. We're working with we're working with a great location, and that location is great whether there's a stadium there or not. And so that's how the district approaches that conversation.
Hi, a little bit of a technical question to start. I know it's 190 acres total. After the fields and the commitment for the new facility, do you have an approximation of how many acres for potential development?
Can I get back to you on that? It's a lot. It's over 100, I can tell you that. You know that? It's a lot.
I know we're on the consultant and what the feedback is for what could be for the land, but do you in your heart of hearts feel that a stadium, new housing, new economic development, that the remaining, whatever is left over, could accommodate everything that you're talking about today and what you'd like to bring to that site?
I do. I do believe that a mix of uses can be accommodated there. Yes.
Council Chairman Mendelson just released a statement minutes ago saying that he does not oppose the bill, but of great concern is the primary challenge is developing land is funding. Quote, we are maxed out in our borrowing over the life of the capital improvement plan adopted for fiscal year 2024 to 2029. Any development of the campus must come at the expense of private developers. To expect otherwise would come at the expense of district schools, public housing, better roads, et cetera. I know you addressed this a little bit earlier, but do you have any direct response to Council Chairman Mendelson?
I look forward to working with the council member. He might have said the exact same thing in the debate over Washington National Stadium. And we're here today. So what I know is that we all, and he has a responsibility just like I do to make the best financial decisions for the district. I would expect no less. And he should also expect that we will come with any recommendations to all of the members of the council with that reality in mind. And I expect that we're going to have very productive conversations, not just about RFK, but about all of our sports teams.
Sam, last question, please.
One of the things that's you've got some of the established areas like Adams Morgan, which we've been seeing an increase in crime in that area, a homicide last night. Obviously, that's a concern. Do you see an end to what we're seeing these days, this constant increase in violence
I
in
do.
the city?
I do, and I especially see it because I see some attitudes and willingness to work on the accountability part of our public safety system. But I also know that with all of the parts of the ecosystem working feverishly and more and in person, that we are going to focus on the people who are most in trouble and most likely to commit crime and see that driven down. All right. Thank you, everybody.